why Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger needs to move to a federation as quickly as possible. We give you three main reasons in the short term why this is urgent and beneficial, and also we give you some philosophical reason why this is urgent and this is beneficial in the long term. So the first thing is security wise. If we take a look at Somalia, Libya, Sudan, and the Congo, we see the chaos that is happening. And if you can't defend yourself, we see the destruction that this will cause. The AES has made great strides in this regard. If we take a look at the blockade on Mali, the fuel blockade, we take a look at the coup d'etat that was supposed to, or the foiled coup d'etat on January 3rd, and also the attack on the Nigerian air base a week ago. We see that the AES, of course, in the security sphere, they have made great strides. But this is not enough. And collaboration is not enough. We need to see these three countries unify their potential. And yes, they've made the unified force of the AES. They've combined their military intelligence and so forth, but this needs to go way beyond that. And of course, the AES have military partnership with a lot of countries. We see a lot of countries have stuck by the AES throughout this time, through this fight against terrorism. Turkey, China, and Russia, of course. There's a lot of military agreements with these countries, but that is not enough. And what we've seen, most of what have been foiled and all this, the gains that have been made, yes, you've gotten a lot of equipment from these countries, but still, what we've seen that has made concrete changes on the ground is the unity of these forces, because what you're facing is multidimensional. And the second reason is economic and development. It's very difficult for one state to get out of the franc CFA or the CFA franc, but it will be much easier for all three countries to leave the CFA franc. By combining the three economies, by combining the three economic potential, this will increase trade amongst each other. This will harmonize their economy. For example, Burkina Faso export a lot of gold, Niger export gold, Mali export gold. This will be easy for them to launch a currency, and that currency can be backed by gold, of course, but also that currency will be the method of trade, which will boost that currency on the international market or the international financial system. It will be harder to undermine that currency. You can even make it so that, since gold is such a critical mineral, whether it's uranium and other resources, whether it's uranium and so forth, you can make it that countries that want to trade with the AES will have to purchase those material in your currency, which will improve your economy, which will improve that, which will protect that currency. And also, you have to be able to protect your currency, because remember, a lot of African leaders lost their lives or was taken out because they dare challenge the CFA. We can take a look at Libya. They wanted a sovereign country for a currency for Africa, and you saw what happened to that country. So this idea of a confederation is great, is a great step, but we need to move faster to a federation. And the third point I want to talk about is political survival of these revolutionary movements. Removing the colonial structure of these states is going to be very difficult. The way these states are governed is very colonial. Yes, you can reform a lot of these institutions, but still, the imperialist countries, they know these institutions. They know how to infiltrate these institutions. And the longer these countries separate themselves, the easier it is, or the more opportunity these imperialist countries has to infiltrate these organizations, these institutions of these countries. So this is why every time there's a destabilization attempt, you see some uh, imperialist countries, or whether it's the European Union is approaching a certain country of the AES, then next thing you know, down the road there's a destabilization attempt, on another country or that very same country. No one asked to help Mali, and no one helped Mali during the fuel crisis, except for the AES and some international partners, maybe like Russia and so forth. But no imperialist country came to help Mali. Actually, these same imperialist countries actually try to worsen the situation by saying, Bamako is going to fall, their citizens should leave. So we advise these leaders to take this into consideration and to move further towards a federation. And by becoming a federation, the center of power will change. The institutions and the makeup of these institutions, the laws of these institutions, even the complexity of these institutions will change, which will make the imperialists become more reactionary. It will be hard for them to infiltrate these institutions, and they will have to, recalibrate themselves to destabilize these institutions. So this is why we call for a federation. Yes, we are in a confederation. The next step would be a federation, but we want to see this go faster because a lot of people say we don't move too fast, you might make mistake, but no revolution start out a revolution that start out one way always evolves and changes as it goes on. So the case for a federation is that yes, these states are in revolution themselves, but revolution change. As revolutions change, the structure of states and institutions change, which means the goals and the things to facilitate that goal actually change. If we take a look at the Chinese Revolution, even the Russian Revolution, it is completely different from what it started off. Let's take a look at the Chinese Revolution. It was a communist revolution to begin with, but if you look at what they started with when China regained its independence to today, it's a whole it look different. And ladies and gentlemen, now we're in the philosophical side of it. What we're seeing here is more of a civilization re-emergence within the AES, if that's what it is. That's if that's how I should put it. What is happening today, confrontation and what is going on in the world, it is civilization. There's a myth that have been put forth by a certain group of people, these imperialist countries, that they are superior. They are the humans. They are greater than any other civilization. As a matter of fact, Africans did not have civilization. Africans are backward. They are such and such percent of a human being or fraction of a human being. So we see that myth has been shattered, and the AES will have to evolve into that sense to be more of a to rely and to showcase the civilization or the African civilization that is re-emerging. Are they superior? Are Africans inferior? Are we less than? Is it that they've been taking our resources for years, causing us to be underdeveloped? That's why African countries are not as developed as they should be. And this will allow Africa to take its place on the global stage by showing that yes, we as African people, we have our own civilization, and these institutions that will be built in the AES or the federation that we are calling for will have African values, will be built on African values and African civilizational values. So when it comes to the revolution is actually evolving this way. If a lot of us take a look at all the cultural revolution and so forth that has been going on in the Sahel country, whether it's Burkina Faso or Mali or even Niger, we see a lot of African culture being pushed. And the president of Burkina Faso mentioned it a few times that we have to go back to our values, or they have to go back to their African roots and their African values. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is more than just the survival of states, but this is to shatter further the myth that Africa never had civilization. And around this area in the Sahel and so forth is where a lot of great kingdom have flourished throughout African history. So Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger cannot separate their revolution. They cannot operate as different states, as different entity anymore. They have to realize that they're in a place that survival is key. And not just survival in the sense of the state, but in the sense of a civilizational confrontation that I wouldn't say confrontation, but the civilization re-emergence that is happening in Africa. Africans are getting their confidence back, saying that, oh, we weren't, you know, just people who were living in huts, mud huts, and blah, blah, blah. Ladies and gentlemen, moving to a federation will create a new dynamic for the imperialists to contend with. And we have to remember that the plan that is being carried out by these countries that are destabilizing the region is not a plan that started 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago. This is a plan that has been in motion for what, maybe 2 decades, 3 decades. The whole point is to balkanize African countries, to recolonize it, because the way the world is moving now, everybody is trying to cut out their sphere of influence, and we see the ones at the north of Africa, north of the continent, that is Europe. They're losing their strategic autonomy that came from its control of African resources. So by introducing this new dynamic, will throw what we will call a monkey wrench in their plan that have been going on for decades. And there's this saying that imperialism is a bad student. Nonetheless, it's a student, and it's a very dangerous student. It can cause a lot of damage. So by changing the game, moving to a federation, we change the dynamic. And the threat that's going on forward is going to only but increase. We saw the blatant attack on the Nigerian airfield that was hosting uranium, which was very dangerous. Had anything happened, it will contaminate the whole area, probably contaminate even regional countries. Moving to a federation needs to happen as quickly as possible to face these new challenges that are coming. As time goes on, these countries will get more desperate, and we will see more blatant acts, even the point of full-on confrontation by these imperialist countries. Countries like France that are losing its influence in Africa and is seeing its survival as a so-called superpower is waning, or it has waned a long time ago, but its relevance in world affairs is waning. So, ladies and gentlemen, we call for a federation of these three states. Never mind, you don't have access to the sea yet, but that will come in due time. So, thank you so much for watching this video. Thank you.